This is All Out Politics, news, debate and opinion from the heart of Westminster. Italy is one of the founder states of the original common market, but the political turmoil in the country is likely to lead to an election that pitches the populist right and the Italian establishment in a battle over sovereignty and the country's relationship with the European Union. So could this be Brexit with sunshine and better food? And what might it mean for the United Kingdom? Joining me now are Labour's Chris Leslie, leading supporter of the People's Vote campaign for a referendum here on the final Brexit deal, and the Vice Chair of the Conservative Party, Rehman Chishti. Welcome to you both. First of all, Rehman Chishti, what do you make of developments in Italy? Pretty extraordinary to have two parties forming a government and the President saying you can't.
Well, I think what you're saying in Italy is that people in Italy are saying they want a different kind of a relationship with the European Union, and I think you're seeing that across Europe. And I would say, you know, it's a wake-up call to the European Union, if it wasn't there before, that people are not very happy with the direction that it's going. We've certainly have gone in a different direction by the referendum, where the people have decided that the United Kingdom should decide its own borders, monies and law. And I think the European Union now has serious questions to look at in terms of what direction it goes.
Do you think it was right to bar the formation of a five-star Lega government because of one finance minister?
Well, I think these are issues in relation to, what happens in Italy is a matter for the Italian people, and there's a number of different points that you would have to look at.
This was a matter for the president,
but I think, it's not a position which I'm in a position to comment on. But these are, what I would say the elections in Italy have certainly put a shockwave in relation to how the European Union works and operates in the coming years.
Do you think this is only going to make things more difficult for the European Union? Do you see this as the start of an Italian exit?
Well, I hope not. I mean, I think the idea that somehow we're all going to prosper if we end up fracturing the alliances that already exist across our nearest neighbours is for the birds. I mean, the dangers of populism mean that you can certainly get elected by railing against all sorts of things that you think are wrong with the world, but actually the hard realities are that the trading relationships that we've got, they pay the bills, they keep people in jobs, and they're necessary for all the public services that we have.
But if you have an election, two parties do well and they want to form a government, shouldn't they be allowed to form a government?
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, I think what's happening in Italy, you see, is a president trying to prevent the country from going into a severe economic meltdown. You can see the reaction of the markets now. We've already seen, of course, in Britain, since Brexit, I suppose as a sort of analogy, £25 billion, according to the Governor of the Bank of England, less growth, £900 per household, less income. Now, if people are aware of that, I don't think that is the course that they will choose. But of course, they were sold a completely different story here in Britain. You can leave Europe, everything will be fine. And of course, in a way, that's part of the problem that the Italians are
think about doing it as well, then that, it is some comfort, isn't it?
I think the facts matter. And if the Italian people and the British people both look at the consequences of ripping up all of these trading alliances, the core fundamentals for our economy, they'll soon realise, as 1 million Labour voters who voted apparently for Brexit, according to YouGov, are beginning to change their minds now, thinking actually this wasn't such a good thing. They will realise that actually it's better to work together.
Do you think membership of the European Union, and particularly the Eurozone, was actually hurting the Italian people?
Well, I think, it's the relationship they had with the European Union, certainly it was not what the Italian people thought was in the best interest, as it was with the membership with the European Union. And I think the point I just want to come back to on that, it's I don't think anyone should tell the people how they should vote. In this case, the Italian people have voted in a certain kind of way. That's led to two political parties to come forward to form a government, and that should be it, because should respect the decision of the public. Same thing in the United States. The public have voted. They've elected a president. Same thing in the United Kingdom. We've gone into a coalition, and rightly so.
But Savona, this finance minister, this economist who was blocked, he had described membership of the euro as, I think, quotes, a German trap. Do you think it is a German trap, benefiting the Germans at the expense of the other Eurozone
Well, look, I
members?
think we've always been very clear in terms of joining the euro. We've always said this is something which we do not want to do because it's not in our national interest. I think some on the Labour Party may have advocated doing it at some stage, but other countries now are looking at and saying, do you know what they had, the way the direction of the European Union was going, was certainly affecting them in relation to how they control their own borders, monies and law. And the public in the United Kingdom have taken a decision to have a new relationship which addresses that.
If you look at, it does appear that belonging to the Eurozone has put a bit of a squeeze on the Italian economy.
No, I think that is a fair point, and I think there are lessons that have got to be learned by the whole of the European Union, particularly the German and French leadership of the EU, to think about how to have more flexibility in their very close Eurozone relationship. But beyond that, I think the lessons for Britain, the lessons for the Italian people are, well, there are always options of going into the sort of isolation outside those alliances, but there are costs and consequences to doing that as well. I think that actually when the British people, just as the Italian people, look at the economic, the jobs costs, the cost of their prosperity, of sort of pulling away from the relationship that I think we all need to have for our own benefit, they'll soon want to say, actually, is this worth doing?
I mean, just picking up on the point made earlier, is your position that you would like to see Britain a member of the euro at some point?
No, absolutely never has been, and that was never going to be the case. I mean, most of those wider members of the European Union are not taking that particular route. What we have actually is a trading relationship which actually has been part of our great success story. It's our fundamental model on which many businesses have been based on. I was in Toyota in Burnaston a couple of weeks ago, 2,500 people who rely on this very tightly timed, just-in-time supply chain, getting goods and all their parts from across Europe. If we sacrifice that, leave the customs union, the single market, there are some big problems of keeping that manufacturing operation going. So, there's a lot at stake here, and a lot of people aren't even aware of how their jobs and their prosperity relates to this sort of arrangement.
I mean, Bank of England too, expressing concerns about the cost of Brexit so far, the governor saying 2%, and also worried that the financial sector, which is so important to the United Kingdom, is pretty much going to be left out in the cold under Brexit.
Well, I think we've made it very clear, actually, in terms of the financial sector is a key part of our economy. We've got to do everything we can to support it. At the same time, what we have to do is deliver on the election, on the referendum result, by coming out of the single market and the customs union, by having that brilliant free trade deal with our European partners. Some of these concerns that we raised can be addressed.
But I mean, the single market and the customs union, you talk about that, it doesn't even cover the financial sector.
Well, it doesn't, but I'm just saying when the concerns have been raised across the board in other areas, then I would say the similar concerns have been raised with regards to the financial sector. But let me make it very clear. For us, the financial sector is a key part of our economy.
What I'm saying, what are we doing to actually help the financial sector?
Well, I would say the discussions are taking place in relation to how you address the issue of regulation affecting our financial sector, and that is being done at every level. And I think the government's in no doubt. The financial sector is key for us, and we'll do everything we possibly can to ensure that it's protected moving forward.
This is a complete fallacy. You can't pretend that you're going to protect some of the key building blocks of our economy. Financial services provides 11% of the tax revenues for our NHS, for our schools, because what you're proposing is to leave that single market and customs union arrangement. Leaving the single market means that the financial sector won't just have sort of issues of tariffs, it won't be able to sell its goods and products at all, because it won't be part of the regulation.
I mean, given that's the decision of British Parliament and the British government to leave, what do you think they could be doing to help the financial sector that they're not doing?
Well, this is the critical thing, and I say this when I speak to people in financial services sector. The decision has not yet been taken on precisely the sort of negotiated Brexit we want. So coming up very soon, maybe as early as the 11th of June, the EU withdrawal bill will look at the question from the House of Lords.
You think we're going to get it then?
They say European Economic Area, that's actually currently in the bill. Now, the government are going to have to make a decision. Do they want to take that out of the bill? Does the Labour Party want to take that out of the bill? I think, at the very least, let's stay in the EEA single market. This is really important for jobs, for the revenues we need to pay for our public sector. It will help the financial sector because they'd be able to then continue to do business.
If you stay part of the EEA, so that undermines the result that took place with the referendum. The sovereignty of the British Parliament and its institutions. If you're part of the EEA, you're paying into a system, but you have no say over the rules.
We're going to pay.
83 Labour lords went down that route. But the point on the financial institutions,
17 Conservatives.
The point on the financial institutions, where they'll be really hit hard, and other institutions, is with the Labour government increasing corporation tax.
Just to be clear, the transition phase when we will be paying money into various European institutions, whatever happens on a single market, that's what we'll be doing anyway, isn't it?
Well, I think what we have to do is, I would like to see that transition period to be as short, as quick as possible.
No, but it's part of government policy, and we will be paying in during that
period.
Well,
I think the reality is, I'm not saying, that's not the case, but I'm saying, we have to get to the end game. The end game, in the short term, you have to make certain concessions. It's give and take, negotiations. Long term, you deliver on what the British public voted on. We are masters of our own destiny, our sovereignty, controlling our borders, laws and money. And in the meantime, of course, in the short term, there's got to be give and take.
The problem is, you're not going to have any guarantees about your future relationship with the European Union, but you're going to fork out £40 billion before you've even done that. I think that is not what the British people voted for. Let them have a final say on the deal.
We are going to have to leave this now. I know we'll be revisiting it with both of you quite soon. Thank you very much. The whistleblower who exposed the Rotherham child abuse scandal has told Sky News the problem has been forgotten by the government. 20 MPs from areas where there have been high-profile cases of grooming are calling on the Home Secretary to do more to tackle the problem.